Welcome everybody to the new episode of the Touch Grass podcast. Hope everyone's actually touching grass and not glued to the screen. Today we have a special guest, Will from Movement. Welcome to the show, Will.
What's going on, gentlemen? And thanks for having me.
Before we get started, Will, I do want to tell you it's 10:30 p.m. in India, and KG made me take a bath for this episode so that I look good. So that's how much he means to us.
That's awesome, man. I'm so grateful. And also, for the people who didn't know, I rescheduled at the last minute. So, also, thank you guys for being so accommodating for your guests. And I apologize about that. Thanks for making time for me.
No worries. And to kind of get started, we worked with Movement, we worked with the team in the early days, and I've seen the growth of Movement over the past year. And we feel like there's just so many things you guys have done that others in the community and in the industry can kind of learn from and build for their own brand. So to kind of start off, tell us about how you first got started and met Rushi and Cooper. And there's this famous video that you posted when you were kind of big announcement you made, and you just showed your vision. So take us from there, and how did you kind of convince your vision to Rushi and the team?
I appreciate that, man. So, I'll take it back to the beginning. The time that I met the founders, the first one I met was Cooper. I was at Austin, Texas Consensus. I think it was 2023 in May. And I was just DJing at like a VC meetup or something. I was just kind of like entertaining myself, just playing some trap music. And Coop came up to me because he liked my style. And we just started to kind of, gel and get to know each other first as friends. And I was like, I really like this guy and I like this vision, but it was like 3 a.m. So went back home, went back to work. And then like a week or two later, he followed up with me and kind of sent me the pitch and really got into like the Move programming language. And I fell in love with the concept. And there was a bunch of people that were trying to grift and, kind of get in the marketing angle with them. And these are two young guys, at the time they were both like, still are early 20s. So I hit up my boss at the time. I was like, I got to go run these guys' marketing. Called Coop, and I was basically like, I'll take a quarter of what anyone else asked for, and I'll outwork anybody else, and I'll run your marketing department. That was the interview, and I think I convinced them. And then on day one, God, maybe like week one, I don't want to. I'm paraphrasing, but I wanted to show them the way that I looked at movement and the Move programming language, and so I created this kind of like storyboard video that was the evolution of innovation over time. So it's like, the bicycle, and then the Wright brothers on a plane, there's a car, there's a boat, there's a train, and then it's Vitalik, and then it's the Move programming language. And I wanted to have this kind of like, innovation continues to accelerate and improve, and, solidity walks so that Move could run. And that's, how they made me feel. And I still believe that today. I think the Move programming language is the future of blockchain technology.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting? The When we were working with you in the early days, the thing that really stood out is a lot of CMOs that we used to work with, everyone just wanted to talk about the tech and talk about how good the tech was. You brought on this like almost concert like vibe, like Coachella vibe, where it was like, all right, the tech is cool and Rushi and Cooper can talk about it. That's not my style. And we're gonna focus on the community. We're gonna focus on how to engage people, and we're gonna have an element of fun in everything that we do. You've obviously told me the story of how you used to work with film stars and pop stars in the past. I think that's a really interesting story that we should sort of start off with as like a foundation to your career.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. It goes well into this, right? Where I started off my career, I was working with musicians at Sony, and then I transitioned to like ICMCAA, working with TV and film producers, directors, writers, and actors. And my reason for going that route was I've always believed in this mantra that like if you want to change a system, you got to go work in the system to understand how to break it and how to rebuild it better. And they have problems, like just like in our industry, right? Like the entertainment industry is ripe with problems. So a lot of it has to do with the middlemen and the way that they kind of get in between, creator and consumer, or artist and fan. And so I really wanted to help these talented, creative individuals get more out of their work. And, so I work with people like 21 Savage. I work with people like Skepta, work with people like DJ Khaled and Joey Badass on the music side, and then went to work with, people like Michael Cera on the, acting side. and writers like Aaron Sorkin and folks like that. But the need was the same, right? There is a fracturing in the middle that we need to solve. And then the same thing happened when I came into blockchain, right? Like there's issues with the EVM that we're trying to solve for as an industry. We might not be able to solve them for Solidity, so let's try to solve them with the Move programming language. But at the same time, to your point, I'm not going to convince people of that by going down a list of technical specs, right? Like I might convince a builder, but the best way that I can convince you that this is going to be different is I'm going to have you have a good time. You know, when I was hanging out with those artists, we were vibing, and that's how we built up trust. And the best way that I can build trust with a community is to be my authentic self. I like to have a good time, and I like to do shit differently. So, and I think, you know, the people I look up to in marketing, I think understood this inherently. Like if you look at how Steve Jobs was advertising the iPhone, he wasn't saying like, you know, the iOS is able to do, you know, this many calls per second. It was like, no, like it wasn't about TPS. It was about thinking differently. It was about change makers. It was about, you know, this is the technology that would enable the next MLK, that would enable the next, you know, Frida Kahlo. Like this was the technology that was going to make the creators create and the activists activate. So I took a page out of that book when I do the marketing for Movement.
Yeah. And, you know, we'll talk about the early days. We'll talk about the testnet campaigns and the community building and all of that. I think a very common thing you see on CT, a lot of people talk about like, hey, what does a CMO actually do? Should it be founder-led marketing? Should you hire an agency? I think something that's really interesting, and we'll clip this out. What's a day like for you as CMO of Movement Labs?
Yeah, like from the time you wake up, what you do exactly is it like so many people on Twitter like open a Telegram, check messages, open email, open Slack, just from the start you wake up.
I think so. I take it very much from the perspective of how I used to work at ICM, which was a talent agency, where I have a trillion things that I have to do. So like, what's the number one thing I can do? Well, the first thing I can do is make a phone call and just get right into it. They call it rolling calls in talent agencies. So I just start rolling calls. So I'm calling legal, I'm calling the marketing team, I'm calling the BD team, I'm calling the engineering team, I'm calling the founders. I'm just getting a sense of like what everybody else's focus is on that day. And at the same time, while I'm calling them, I'm scrolling through Telegram to make sure I'm not needed by the ecosystem or by an agency that we're working with, or that there's not some immediate need for me on like when it comes to like facing the community or facing our builders. And so I'm trying to just, how much can I multitask in one day? And a lot of that is collaborative, right? I can't really make motion without founder buy-in. So I got to check in with them. And then it's, you know, I look at the world in micro and macro settings, right? So in one day, I'm thinking about what are the micro steps I need to do to get us to tomorrow. I got a laundry list of things I got to get through. But then I'm thinking about what's going to get us through the next 3 years. And so I'm laying the foundation for that. So, you know, if I'm working with policy, I'm calling policymakers. I'm writing, you know, trade associations. I'm making sure that we keep the ball rolling on the policy side. If I'm working on Hollywood deals, I'm making sure that I'm communicating to managers and agents, because Hollywood moves slow. And so I know if, you know, eventually they're going to call me and be like, Will, where's this deal? It's going to take me 3 months to get the deal done. I got to play chess moves in my head. They're going to call me next week. So I need to get this deal started 3 months ago, you know? So I'm playing that micro macro game in my head. And then I'm just checking in with the team, like, you know, calling the marketing team now that I have one. You guys were around when it was just me, but we, you know, we got a squad now. So I'm making sure they don't need me. Like, do we have any interviews coming up? Like the one that I'm on right now, I got to make sure that I'm here. Do we have anything that we need to communicate on the timeline today? That's very important. Make sure that I'm checking the language, making sure they don't need anything from me. Maybe they have a decision that they need my input on. So
Yeah,
it's just playing that balance game.
yeah. I would. It's all good.
You're good.
And I would assume a lot of your time now that you have a pretty stacked team, like I'm pretty sure you have like 8 people on your team now. I would assume a lot of your time is like what you call macro, thinking about the future, thinking about how this sort of lays together and everything that's coming together. Talk to us about the initial days. You know, when it was just you, me, KG. You know, we had a couple of people else. Like, we can talk about the team building part after as well. But like, tell us about your thoughts when we were doing the testnet campaign and when it was like, yeah, let's do this guild thing. Like, I thought that was really different for Movement. How did you think of that? What was your first thought, you know, going to that testnet campaign? What was like the vision? And like, what if we can get inside your brain, like this is what I thought. That's
Yeah,
what we're looking for. Like, this is
I
what I
got you,
thought.
man. I got you. And I love that you guys were there for that. It's a cool full circle moment because that was, it was a shot in the dark that who knew it was going to work the way it did. And it's funny because as you were asking me that, kind of an example of what I was talking about, a day in the life, like that's my day. People just call me, I'm calling people, we're getting after it. So I just messaged, thank you for the call, Wiz. Appreciate that, man. So yeah, taking a step back, when I first joined Movement and the guild's idea was something that I came out the gate with like week one was we're an unknown team in a new programming language environment, and we need to make a splash and we need to show with our actions what we're doing is authentic and genuine, right? So if I get on the timeline or I get on a spaces and I say this is a community first project, what is community first to me, right? For me, it's everyone is welcome, right? Everybody that participates in crypto, everybody that participates in Web3, whatever form, flavor, fashion, they have a place in this. They have a place here on this infrastructure. They have a place here in this community. And so the guilds was a way of me to convey that both to the founders and to the world, where I grew up playing World of Warcraft. Video games understand this inherently, right? You have to have different classes so that everybody can play the game. Not everyone wants to use magic. Not everyone wants to use a sword. Not everyone wants to have a pet. So you got to have a variety of different mechanisms that people can be represented. And so that was the guild program, right? Like some people are on-chain maxis. Some people are creators. Some people are educators. Some people want to throw events. And this industry is very wide in terms of like educational levels too. So I also can't be communicating to a developer community that wants to know how that they can write and move. That's not going to translate to someone who wants to make memes. So I have to have vehicles where I can communicate to all those people in languages that they understand and feel heard and respected by. Otherwise, I'm going to lose an audience, and I'm not interested in losing anyone. And so, yeah, I mean, you guys were there in the early days, man. It was a stressful time because I'm trying to, tackle the world with, limited resources and no team. So shout out to Scribe for helping me through and, dealing with some anxiety on my behalf. Like you guys held it down for me, and I'm very grateful for the help I got from you guys.
100%. And one thing is, most people look at movement and the success you guys had, and they're like, "We want that. We want to kind of replicate that or something." But what they don't see is so much of work has gone in. I think in one podcast you said from the start to finish of the preparation of the entire testnet campaign probably took like 6 months, I believe, from the initial idea to going live, I believe. Uh, they don't see those behind the scenes of what goes into it.
Yeah.
So, and I also want to ask, what are some things that you guys did in those early days that are not really that scalable, but had such an impact right now that you guys are kind of it's compounding for you guys? What are those things that people like? For example, reaching out to the first 100 people are very important in the community. Reaching out to everyone, messaging everyone, being so personalized. Those things are not scalable, right? What are some of those things you guys did in those early days that are kind of paying dividends right now?
I think working like there's no tomorrow is the most unscalable but critical thing you can do early stage for a startup. Like I'm I understand people where they want to have a work-life balance, but I think when you're first getting started, you don't have money, you don't have community, and all you really have is your word and your work ethic. You're about to be working that word more than you ever will the rest of your life. Like the early days of movement, me, Tarab, Rushi, Coop, and Liam were not sleeping. Like we weren't sleeping. I was on calls all day. Every ounce of social capital I had in my name, I was using to get the word out. You just have to have this relentless belief in what you're talking about, and you have to work like, you know, the reality is if you don't work like that, you're going to fall into like there's so much noise on Twitter. There's so much attention that other people can focus on. You got things like Modad, Mega ETH, Aptos, Sui, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana. Like there's so many directions that people can go in that if you're not ruthlessly pursuing your passion and advocating for what you believe in and getting your voice heard in a sea of 1,000 voices, it's not going to work. So I think to somebody who's trying to start up, and walk the path of movement, prepare yourself to work harder than you've ever worked on anything in your entire life. And it still might not work. You got to just kind of have that relentless optimism too, that like it will pay off. And even if it doesn't pay off, you don't care. At least you tried, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I want to double down on that. Like, I want to get more specific. Like, how do you get the first 1,000 people into your Discord or the first 100 people you care?
So we, on the first like month or two of how we addressed like building the community, I was cool with one person, So we're on Twitter Spaces. I'm doing Spaces pretty much every day. We're writing content every day, trying to communicate to people. And I'm having call to actions that are like, come into the Discord and interact with us. And then we were creating, it's so funny looking back on this because it's almost 2 years ago now. But we were going to the community and engaging them directly, which truthfully speaking, I want to do a bit more of now. And we were basically like, look, you guys are the first people to join this community. What direction do you want to take it? Get involved, right? We had one of our core engineers, Andy Gole, come out of this process. We directly engaged the community that we did have, from when it was one person to when it was 1,000 to when it was 100,000. It's gotten too big for us to do that now. And so we're creating mechanisms similar to the guilds, which is also how we helped like consolidate to address all of them. But yeah, you got to work with your community, man. Like if you want to get from 1 to 100, that one is going to help you, right? Because the work that we did interacting with them spreads word of mouth. They help us spread the community. They become similar to like a KOL or, an influencer. Your earliest community is diehard. You got to take good care of it.
That makes sense. And there were, I think, to KG's point of there are things that are not scalable that the Movement Labs team did. Well, I remember the spaces. I remember the podcasts you used to do back in the day. I'm pretty sure you're super busy and you don't have time to do them now. I also remember Rushi commenting "Hey" on everyone that posted about Movement, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't have time to do that now. Also, I think a huge inflection point, and I was super fond of this story of like how the gmove tag came along, and like between me and KG, when we used to look at the analytics inside, and like we used to show you graphs of how gmove usage has gone up, and like Rushi and Cooper used to geek out on that. Tell us a story around the gmove tag, like and I'll give you some more context on why I asked this specific question. Like we see the gmonads and we see like protocols have their company name being promoted with this. This was the first time where a company was like, we're just going to promote the language. And it's like, Aptos, we come together. It's like, move. We care about move. How did that come about?
And it also, if you go, it also just feels different. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but saying it just feels different, I guess, compared to others. And it's like gmove, like even I kind of sometimes tweet it out, and I don't think about movement in general, but it is something that just feels different.
That's validating, man. I mean, okay, so I think you guys are touching on something that's really powerful about the approach we took, right? I don't like to shill, and I don't shill, right? I don't think it progresses us as a company for us to be relentlessly pushing movement. That's never going to be, you're never going to hear me doing that. The thing that makes us special inherently on a technical level is the Move programming language. And we can get down with Sui and Aptos on this, right? There's no competition when it comes to Move. We're in it together. I believe that from the day I started, and I'll believe it till the day I die. There's enough for everybody. And like, I'm a big believer in collaboration. And I think that when you're marketing, it really comes down to, do you believe in what you're saying? And I think gmove was so brilliant and at the same time so simple, where we needed a GM and Rushi was just like, yo, gmove, right? That was how it started. As simple as that. Rushi's like, let's just start saying gmove. And it started there, right? What we identified through it was gmove is not just a hello, good morning. It's also, that's a good move. That's a gmove right there. And so when we were developing like a marketing campaign around gmove, I was like, yo, Rushi, let's turn this into like a affirmation. Instead of it just being a gmonad or good morning, it's like, yo, that's a gmove. Like, show me what a gmove means to you, right? Because at first it starts about the movement programming or the move programming language. My apologies. But then as it moves on, I want this to be something that we want mass adoption, right? And mass adoption is not going to come from, TPS or, stopping a reentrancy attack. Mass adoption comes from having people feel like they're part of this industry, even if they don't understand it. And everyone can get down with a good move. And, that ad campaign went absolutely phenomenally. And I can't wait to bring it back, man. That was a good time.
Yeah. And I think, you know what's really interesting and something that I've really, like I've had deep respect for your team with regard to how you were always like happy to experiment. Like this gmove thing, it could have flopped. The movement exercise campaign where Rushi was squatting and the whole community was filming like fitness videos. That could have, and you tweeted about it. You were like, 80% this campaign will flop, but we're going to do it anyway because we care about this.
Yep.
What goes into the mind? Like, I think a lot of CMOs in the space play it safe, where they're like, okay, we know Twitter works, we know Zilly works, we know Galaxy works, but we don't know if TikTok works or Instagram works, so we're not going to do that.
Yep.
I feel like the approach from you guys is totally different, where you're happy to go into the mud and then see if it works or not.
Yeah, I think to your point, that's the only way new entrants are going to make it, because the way that I look at things is if you do it the way it's already been done, then you're doomed to fail because it's already been done. You might get by for a year, but like down the road of history, the people that make it in business are the people who took risks and the people who paved their own path. And I communicated that early to the founders that if we don't establish ourselves as doing things differently and we consistently hit that mark of taking risks, calculated risks, not just like shoot into the dark risk, but like this has a ROI attached to it. That's how you make a name for yourself, right? And in a situation where there's hundreds of layer 2s and dozens of L1s and everyone's fighting for the same communities. Like, I'm not interested in infighting. I'm not interested in tribalism. Like, I want to work with those other companies and I want to grow the lion's share of like crypto adoption. And we do that by trying things out. And there's a great quote for this, right? You fail fast and you fail often. And I think if you do that, then you succeed fast and you succeed often.
100%. And another thing about brand association, that comes with these relatives and movement is also their mascot, right? And one of the best mascots that I really like is Moveus. And I've seen like how it has changed with, different versions of it and the memes out of it, the lore building. I've kind of seen it, behind the scenes as well. So could you walk me through like how do you come up with the name Moveus and the lore and also the Parthenon stuff. I've seen it all, but I want to hear from you.
Yeah, of course. So when I was coming up with the guilds idea, and I was talking to Coop about how we can create this like gamified user experience that is like something that people could be playing and participating in for years. We came up with the idea for guilds. We came up with the idea of like a class-based system. Then you need the tool in which they can participate in their guilds in their class. Like you need the game, right? You need the experience. And we're all nerds at Movement. Like we love mythology. And I think we were kind of taking a risk on like what mythology we'd start with. And I think the consensus was we all love Greek mythology. So we're like, all right, let's go with the Parthenon, as this place for them to entertain and be entertained. And then it came to like, we need a mascot. And I think it was Moveus Maximus just came about, it's like the gladiator, right? Like he's Marcus Aurelius or, something Maximus. I don't remember, but it just happened naturally, man. The name kind of came about. I think we were pitching names back and forth. We were cooking together at this time. I think we were just kind of throwing names back, and it was like Moveus stuck. And then I was like Moveus Maximus the third. And then we wanted to go the cute angle and make Moveus relatable. So we took like a more playful gladiator route. Like he's got the Roman adoration, but he's like a Greek dude. And we got a lot of plans for him. I think we had I was going to say he had a twin, but I'll leave that for the lore. Moveus has a twin. We just haven't announced it yet.
Yeah, like the whole Goku, like Black Goku arc. Is
exactly,
that
dude. Exactly. Exactly. They got to fuse.
But okay, now that I can get this on camera now. For everyone listening in, back when Moveus was initially introduced, I pitched so hard for Rushi to wear the Greek costume to a conference, and that got shot down so many times. Um, yeah, that's definitely something that we have to
Let's
do.
bring it back.
Uh, yeah, let's bring it back for sure. But well, like I think a lot of teams have now brought the mascot back, and
Yeah.
a lot of that has come to you guys. A lot of that has to do with the Monad guys. I think Modauk does a great job in that department. But with all these different characters, how much would you attribute like the mascot towards brand building and community building and recognizability on CT?
I think you brought this up as it relates to gmove, right? Like people like people and things more than they like brands. And so you see a lot of founder-led marketing because people like people. The same thing goes for a mascot, right? Like I can only drive so much hype around Movement Labs as a company. If we focus too much on our company, then we're going to cap out right here. This sky is the limit mentality is achieved when you give people things to rally behind that are not like, a business. Moveus is just a cute dude who, lives carefree and who lives on the internet, right? Like Moveus isn't someone that can be corrupted. Moveus isn't someone that can be greedy. Moveus is Moveus. He's a cute little Greek dude who, works in the Parthenon and who rallies the movers. And that'll never change. So I think that's kind of the way that a mascot can be really beneficial is it anchors you in something, right? Like the Malandok or the way the Monad knows this inherently too, right? Like you create a character that is cute and relatable and fun and can be repurposed and can appeal to people outside business. It doesn't have to do with like, fast blockchains. It's just a cute little thing. It's a little Pokemon almost. That's, something for the families, man. Some of these people got kids. Like, some of these engineers got a child at home. You give them a little mascot plushie, and now that kid's involved in the community too. So I think the mascot is just, we
Gotta
don't,
gotta get them early. Get them early into the Movement Labs community. That's the play
yeah.
for sure.
I got a plushie for you. I got to send you one.
Yeah,
I've
I
actually
think
been waiting for the T-shirts as well. Will I think it's like 2 years pending now. I
Send me
got
your
that on
address.
camera as well.
This is how people treat me on calls. They're like, I'm waiting on you. I need your address, dude. Give me your address. I'll send you a plushie and the t-shirt.
the Chinese hoodie bangs really.
Dude, I got you, man. That one of my favorite things to do at Movement is to create like legitimate like fashion items. I do really small amounts of clothes. Once the edition is over, it's done. I don't reprint it. I take a lot of inspiration from like fashion houses in how they distribute their clothes. The difference is that I don't charge people for them yet, but yeah, I try to keep it scarce so that has that mentality. But I
Yeah,
got you guys. Save some for you both.
I think
yeah,
you mentioned
and
this before, like you had this idea where why don't we just set up a shop at the next conference where we just print some custom merch for everyone and have them wear it. That's like no one does it, no one did it before, so that's really cool.
We do what we can.
yeah, and then well, what I want to mention after that is the mascot and the G move. All of these have sort of translated into international brand building as well. Like back when we were working together, I don't think any other team was thinking about Indonesia or Thailand or India or Vietnam, for instance. Like, sure, they were thinking about it across like the spectrum of TGE in that realm, but this was like 2 years before. Like, there was no community, and we were still thinking about APAC or Latin America, for instance.
Yeah.
How has the brand evolved to be more inclusive to the international audience, and how do you, as a CMO, think about that?
I appreciate that, man. I think first of all, I do believe there were folks paying attention. I think the edge that we have is that like I'm a community builder at heart. Everything that I do, my whole career has been about like helping people and building community and building brands. And so same way with the guilds, right? Like I want to have everyone who participates in this industry be included. That goes for the world. There's people in Indonesia, there's people in Nigeria, there's people in Cote d'Ivoire, there's people in France, there's people in Idaho. They all deserve to be part of the movement. And the limitation for me is language barrier. But the beauty of that is like, I'm not from these places. So I need to go identify community members that join. Like they might pop in, right? But once they're in, it's like, wait, sorry, do you mind staying with me for a second and helping me better understand like the framework of what's going on in Korea? And do you mind like kind of being a flag bearer? Do you like being here? Like, if so, can you help us spread the word? Can you bring people in and educate folks? And that's when you start to really have a community first project, when folks that join stay and bring in more folks and build up the brand in their region according to the values and the needs and concerns of those areas. And I think that's something that's been really beautiful, because the intention was there from the beginning, but the execution is dependent on the people that come in. Like I can't bring us into Korea if I don't speak Korean. I can't bring us into Japan if I don't speak Japanese. But if someone who does and who's bilingual and they can communicate with me and they rock with us, they're going to help get the word across there. And we just got really fortunate that people across the world were resonating with the message, and fuck with us. And I'm very grateful for them and their trust in us.
I think that doesn't like it's not just limited to the community. I feel like having a great brand, like founder-led marketing is one thing, sure, but having a great brand and all that combined, like it helps you hire as well. Like,
Yep.
okay, so for example, like Rahat, for instance, who is a DevRel at Movement, I'm sure he has like a ton of offers, but he ended up coming to Movement Labs. And I'd love to believe that the brand building exercise is something that's public, and they're
Yep.
proud to say like, hey, I work at Movement Labs. As as the founding team or like as leadership, is that also an aspect where you're like, maybe let's not do this, let's do this because it will help us hire better as well?
That is a fascinating question. I think as it relates to hiring, yeah, I think the same principles apply. Like you want people to have a sense of ownership. The way that I look at the community and the team is the same. I actually look at the team as a part of the community, just the most entrenched community members. Like they're so involved in the movement. They're working all day. They're literally getting salaries, like that's how entrenched these community members are. So yeah, the value set applies the same. I think one thing I want to do moving on in the future is have it be like so inherently what you just described, where it's like it's a badge of honor that people like, and we're working on that. Like I think every day we improve on that, but I want it to be the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, if there's a job that goes up for movement, that's just gone day one. It's like people are throwing themselves at this opportunity, and that comes with more time. Like we're still, at the end of the day, as much as the growth as we had, we're still an underdog. If someone gets a job offer from us or ETH Foundation, they still have to think about that. I don't know. I succeeded when it's like ETH Foundation. I'm going to Movement, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Makes sense. And also, one of the things that I think most companies in crypto struggle with is hiring, and they hire too much or too little, or hire the wrong time, and kind of face some struggles. How do you guys scale your team, and what does the team construct look like right now?
So when I first started, Coop asked me the question of what resources do you need? The way that I look at this might be different than others, so I just want to preface it. My answer to him was, I don't know what I need until I start failing. So let me go fail, and then I'll know I need to hire in that way. So for me, one of the areas that I was failing in my own eyes was I can't stay awake 24 hours a day. And so I have so much work I want to do in the other side of the world, right? I want to be in Korea, I want to be in India, I want to be in Japan, I want to be in Thailand, I want to be in Vietnam. I can't. And not only can I not, I can't be awake all day and all night. And so I had to scale over there. I had to scale on the other side of the world. So now I'm able to interact with those communities in a more wholesome and impactful way because I have that team. And I think that's how the rest of the company scales as well. And I believe that's how all companies should scale. I don't think people should be reprimanded for their failures. I think they should look at that as a learning opportunity and be like, all right, I'm falling short in this way. Let's operationalize it and optimize it. And if they keep failing, then yeah, you probably have a problem. But like, you scale, you're gonna make things are going to need to break,
Yeah.
right? They can't scale at the end of the day unless you scale.
Yeah. But then, well, for your marketing team right now, like, what does a team look like? Like, what's the construct between APAC or LATAM and like different departments like social, PR, design? What's the team construct look like right now?
Got you. So movement marketing, if it was like a tree, right? I'll be at the top, but I lead it horizontally. So I don't want anyone to think that like, we're run like a hierarchy. These are my peers. They don't work for me. So I have Carmen, who's focused on PR. So she's making sure that we're getting the word out however we can in articles, speaking opportunities, on the news, wherever we can get it on the PR side. I got Chris, who's running the comms. By the way, they're all hitters. I want to be clear. The reason we're horizontal because these people are fucking incredible. Chris is calm. So if you're thinking about technical writing, if you're thinking about translating a message, like that's Chris. He's crushing. If you're looking at like visual ID, if you're looking at like our art direction, that's Zen. Secret Weapon. She's fucking incredible. Any of the like beautiful designs that you guys are seeing, that's a combination of her and I just creatively jamming shit out and then working with agencies if we don't have the bandwidth. So if we need animation, we're going to go to Sky Punch. We're going to cook. Then if you look at how we're expanding, that's where you start bringing in Imran and Winnie and an APAC team. So Imran, I look at as like a bridge. I need someone he was a former CMO. He worked at Zeta. He worked at Kyber. So he's got an idea of how to run marketing at a global level. I look at him as like a bridge to APAC for me because he's in a time zone where we can coordinate and I can work with him, pass off information. He can work with them, and then we can continue the cycle daily. And then the way I look at how we scale regionally, I don't know if this is the best idea. This is just my idea, but I want it to be that each region, so if it's China, if it's Japan, if it's India, event and LATAM, I want to have regional marketing leads or like regional CMOs where they're directing, they understand the demographic, right? I'll use China as an example because that's what Winnie does, is she's responsible for China. I'm not Chinese. I don't know if you guys know, if you can tell, but I don't speak Mandarin. I don't speak Cantonese. So what am I going to do if we're trying to market for a Chinese native audience? I'm not aware of the culture. I'm not aware of what the needs and concerns are of the audience. The same way I do my developer marketing is the same way I look at regional marketing. I'm going to defer to the people that are from the region to identify where we should go with our messaging. And I take our community building and our developer marketing the same way. When I want to market to builders, I go to Rahat and Cheyenne because these hands can't code, just like this mouth can't speak Chinese. So I think the best thing that I can do is rely on the experts. And that's the way that I structured our marketing department, and the way that I work with our, developer centric marketers in our DevRel team is, let's go to the experts and let them tell us how to do it. And let's work in a horizontal way, because otherwise then I'm just, I'm a despotic leader. And it's a hierarchy, and I don't think that works long term.
Makes sense. And you mentioned about like marketing to different people, like marketing different regions, different demographic, developers, users, and capital allocators and whatnot. And now we have like institutions coming in, and the whole scene kind of changing.
Yeah.
People always think that you should market uh, people in a certain way, right? If it's users, retail in a certain way, institutions in a certain way. Do you guys take that approach, or is like at the end of the day, everyone's just people, right? And you're just marketing to people?
So it's the same kind of concept, right? We as a team have to rely on the experts in this regard. I think I got this advice in terms of writing once upon a time, right? I need to get feedback. At the end of the day, I'll make the ultimate decision. My first gut instinct is to trust the team. So, for example, with institutions, if they say, Will, you got to show up in a suit and tie and you got to communicate this way, I will. But if I get receipts or I get evidence that the feedback I'm getting could be, I might disagree with it, I might push back. I personally think it's, to your point, it's all people. We're marketing the same across the world. There's slight variations to the way that you communicate. And that's where, like, if it's institutions or if it's regional or if it's developer or if it's the guilds, actually, this is a great example. the guilds is a perfect way of explaining this because we slightly change the messaging dependent on the guild we're talking to. But the end result is still the same. We're still promoting the Move programming language. We're still promoting community first ideals. And we're still promoting a fun, inclusive, and vibrant community. It's just you have to tweak that messaging so that it resonates strongest. Because I'll give you a great example again. If I go to you and say, hey, KG, let's go code some Move programming language, you're going to be like, well, I don't know. But if I tell you that the Move programming language will enable your clients on the marketing side to further their development goals, then you as a marketer might be able to be like, hey, guys, I know you're running into bottlenecks with Solidity. I don't know engineering, but I hear that this Move programming language is pretty great, right? So it's a subtle difference, but the end result is the same. I'm still feeding you this Move language is something different. You can check it out.
Yeah. I feel like, Will, do you read a lot, like in terms of like online or books?
Yeah, I listen a lot. I'm a big podcast guy.
Okay. Yeah. The reason why I ask is like there's like a psychology element to every question that you're asking. So this might be a very fucked up, and this might just be me, and we might have to cut this, but let me ask you like a pretty deep question.
Sure.
As a CMO, and based on a lot of the questions that you've asked, it feels like the moat that you have is your personal taste and your way to analyze things and be like, yeah, this is the direction to go. Yeah. As a CMO and as like a creative moat, like you said that you and Zen work on it, and then Zen flushes it out. A lot of the creative direction comes from you. As a CMO, do you sometimes feel that one day you wake up and you won't have that creative power, or you'll turn into like a boomer and you'll struggle the way that some boomers do to have like marketing direction? Have you ever thought about that? Like maybe giving it an analogy, like back in college when I used to play sports, I used to fear that maybe one day I'll wake up and I won't have it. I've started to feel that way with my work now as it gets a lot more creative. Is that something that you felt ever or thought about?
Such a great question, dude. I love getting into it. All right, I'm going to answer it a couple different ways. Firstly, you have perfectly identified my approach in terms of psychology, because when I was in school, the first thing I ever studied was sociology. And I think the study of people and psychology and how they operate in the world is it's my guiding light. So the reason that I change my messaging depending on people's needs and concerns is because that's the best way I can appeal to their hierarchy of needs. Because depending on who they are, that's going to change slightly. So you're spot on with that. Do I think that will fade over time? Yeah, I do. 100%. I used this example at a conference recently. I noticed this in music a lot. You'll see a lot of older heads trying to make the music of the youth. So for example, right now, like this screamo kind of punk Cardi-esque vibe in rap is super hot. You might notice some of the older head rappers trying to do that, and it comes off super corny. So I think to your point, I will fall off if I don't accept change. But if I continuously adapt my creativity to the point of view that I have and the point in my life that I have, I don't think I'll ever fall off, because I'll just change who I'm marketing to. So if I'm a boomer, I'm probably going to end up marketing to boomers, and then I'll rely on a Zoomer to tell me how we market to Zoomers, because I know what my strengths lie in my ability to follow the trends, but know that I can't lead the trend. At a certain point, I'm going to be out of the loop. And I have to accept that, right? Like I'm out of the loop as it relates to like crypto Twitter culture. I'm out of the loop, dude. That's just I'm not a milady, but I got team members that are, you know what I mean? So I go to them because I don't know that. I just don't do that. Like, I do me. But that's how we move. It's like, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. That's how you can work for the rest of our lives, is we just need to surround ourselves with a team and trust that team.
That is so fascinating. And you mentioned adaptability. Can you kind of share some moments where you had to adapt your approach in the last couple of years?
Yeah, man. I think the way that I work with analytical minds is very new to me. I grew up in a very creative, like activist, community oriented, like very feeling based world. Not everyone thinks that way, and that I've had to adapt because
like vibes based marketing.
Dude, Yeah, I mean, that's my natural, dude. I market off vibe, but not everyone's trying to vibe. Some people are trying to be super locked in and super serious and very analytical and very math oriented. And I've had to adapt. It is not the easiest, but that's part of it, part of being on a team. You know, I got people that can help me there.
I think another thing that I've seen in terms of movement labs adapting or at least changing a little, and I want to get your view on this, is you always through the events, the culture was always there. Now I've seen a lot of high end video come out, and I saw you do a lot of stuff at Eat Denver. It was all on video, it's all posted online. Is that also a scenario of you adapting marketing strategy based on like how maybe Solana might be doing it or other teams might be doing it?
I'll say this. That is an adaptation towards my strengths. I think when we first started, I had to be a little bit more off the gas of like what I'm most comfortable doing because I had to prove to the founders and to like the technical community that I wasn't here to play games. You know, if I had come out the gate swinging, immediately going the content creation route, you guys see how I present. You guys see my character. Like I wouldn't have gotten taken seriously. So I think it goes back to KG too, like the point of me adapting for a technical audience. Now it's funny because it's like a paradox. I'm now orienting back to who I truly am. I'm a content creator. I'm a creative director. I'm a producer. You know, I'm an entertainment guy. I'm an entertainer at heart. And so now I identify one of the edges we have to lean into more is we got to entertain the world, because if we let Solana out entertain us, or we let Sui out entertain us, or we let Aptos, or we let Bitcoin or the Ethereum community create better content than us, we're going to lose the attention game. And so it's funny because I got to pivot back into what I believe my actual strengths are, to keep our edge intact. So you start to see the production quality start going up, and the storytelling start to become more of an emphasis, out of necessity.
Yeah. So we'll see a lot more video come out and like a lot more high end production, a lot more focus on dinners, events. Okay, that's pretty cool. I can't wait for that.
I think I think that we could say that's some alpha. Yeah, you guys will see.
All right. Okay.
We got some stuff in the works, man.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, I do want to switch gears a little bit. Something a little bit more serious. Something that a lot of I'll say it this way. A lot of CMOs are not fortunate enough to be in that situation where they have as many eyeballs as Movement Labs does. As the CMO, movement comms have been solid, and I'm 100% sure you're the first filter that goes through. How do you guys think about, like if there's FUD on the timeline or there's FUD in general? How does the Movement Labs team think about addressing FUD?
Yeah. So for me, and I've spoken about this before, I look at FUD as two parts. Part one of it is constructive criticism that teams need to take really seriously. Because if someone takes time out of their day to tell you what they think is wrong, that's a potential fan. They clearly care enough to tell you suck. So how do you convince them you don't? That's part one. And then part two is sometimes people just hating. And that you got to identify the difference, right? Like if there's a grain of wisdom in what they're saying, teams, including ours, need to take it seriously. And if they're just player hating, then that's just part of the game. And so the way that I address it with the team is like, take it seriously, listen, address the feedback, and keep it pushing. And sometimes it gets demoralizing because, people got a lot of time on their hands, and people feel very comfortable, taking shots on Twitter, but it's just part of the game. And so I look at it like it's an opportunity to prove people wrong and convert them. I'll give you a great example. When I was working at the Senate, there was the Senate pro tem at the time, and I'm going to blank on her name, so I'm not going to try to get it right, but she was this amazing woman, and she basically sat me down one time and was like, Will, she saw in me somewhat of what she was going through, which is like, I was dealing with constituents who I vehemently disagreed with, like in terms of like our viewpoints, right? And so she was telling me that there was a guy she's a lesbian woman, and there was a guy who would call the office and would like basically light her up with like homophobia. And she was very calm and was like, listen, I'm here to help you. Just like stop with that, right? Like you have concerns that you're upset about, but like, you know, the way that I identify and the way that I express my love to the world and to another human being, it's not your concern. That's my private business. But like what you're calling me about, which was his problems with the social structure of California, valid. Let's get through that, right? And so she helped him despite the fact that he was terrible to her. And when she decided to eventually run for Senate pro tem, which is the president of the Senate, and she became a senator, he was the first donor to her campaign. And I always remembered that because this guy hated her guts, didn't agree with the way she lived her life, and made that clear to her on a regular basis. But because she put their personal disagreements aside and focused on solutions to the problems he had, that some of which were righteous, he saw that, oh, this woman's a leader. This woman actually gets shit done. This woman's a boss. And so that's the way I look at FUT. If they're going to come on the timeline, take the time out of their day and say, Will, you need to do this differently and that differently, and then I go off and do that, and I can show them provably, look, I took the great example of this was when we first launched Parthenon. We had a lot of feedback about there being too many quests. A lot of comments about that, right? Our intention was pure. We wanted the ecosystem to be able to show all this way that you could participate, but people felt like they were being taken advantage of. That's how they felt. And so Rushi, credit to him in this moment, he got straight on his phone. And I was like, yo, let's look through. And he was like, no, I got to address it right now. It was super cool to watch because he was super locked in on this is valid criticism. And he said, guys, you don't have to do every quest. And we're going to make the paths of the Parthenon, which makes it easier to understand what are the quests that you should be doing and how you can do them in a more thoughtful way. It was brilliant. And it showed me the qualities that he has as a leader too. So I think that's the way that people should look at FUD is like, it's an opportunity. It's yes, sometimes they're just player hating, but sometimes they're a fan and they want to be a fan and you should listen to them.
100%. And that's a great way to put it. And you mentioned Rushi as well. And it's so fascinating how he kind of manages the whole situation and everything kind of just calms down the community, and the way he does it is so unique. What does Rushi do that others founders fail to do when it just comes to on Twitter communicating with the community, communicating with the users and builders?
I think that right there, man, is exactly what he does better than anyone is that he listens to Twitter. Like now, sometimes I'm like, dude, you only listen that much. But he, more than anyone I've met in founder mode, he is paying attention to community sentiment and market sentiment. And he's trying to address it head on and not hide from the problem. And, you know, sometimes we bump heads. Like I think all teams do. But I think that's something that I've always really admired is that like when CT gets up in arms, he faces them. And a lot of people don't do that. And he does it in a proactive way. Sometimes he'll front run our announcements, and that frustrates me because I'm like, photos up. But you know, that's just he's the founder. Like, so I think that proactive approach, you know, while I love a good amount of tact, I think it's also been one of the reasons we've been so successful is that motherfucker sprints.
Yeah. And as a CMO, like on the timeline, you see a lot of debate around founder-led marketing versus hiring a CMO. And then there's a camp where it's like, you should hire an agency. As a CMO, like I would assume it's a blessing to have someone like Rushi who is like an active, like I wouldn't say marketing channel, but someone who has his own voice, who has his own personality that is different from the movement brand. And there's like an intersection where it becomes really beautiful where, he's posting about the updates of movement and all of that. As a CMO, how do you utilize that to the max benefit of the project? Or is that not a consideration at all?
No, totally is. I think in this day and age of like immediate gratification and like personality cults, you cannot build a successful brand that doesn't have the founder intertwined in the brand. So like I'll use Bezos as an example to Amazon, Elon as an example to Tesla, Rushi as an example to Movement, and I'm blanking on the NVIDIA guy's name. But when you saw the video of him signing that woman's tits, like it is like it makes you want to buy NVIDIA stock. You know, when you see Rushi going on a panel and this man's built like a tree trunk, his fucking shoulders are going from one side of the stage to the other. You're like, I want to be like that guy. You're just telling me he's 22 and he raised how much money? Like that lore is so much more valuable than me just going out and saying, "Hey guys, we're gonna help the industry with a programming language." Like, it'll get us somewhere. It'll get us somewhere. But I truly
Yeah.
believe that like founder-led marketing is that's where the winners are found.
Yeah. There was also a week where CT thought Rushi was 14. That week was pretty entertaining.
Is he not?
Yeah. No, I think he is. I don't know. All right,
I'll tell
well,
the story. My first time going out with
all right,
Rushi.
yeah.
Oh, Rushi's gonna hate me for telling this, but I think it's such a good story. He was underage. He wasn't 21 yet, and so they wouldn't let him in the club. And it was one of the best nights of my life because I sat outside and I was like, I'm really building a company with a dude who can't even get into the club right now. Like this is really what I'm doing. But it goes to show, man, this is one of the things I love about Rushi and Coop. You don't need to be a 45-year-old with a book of business and an experience sheet that spans across 7 industries to found a unicorn. You need to be highly motivated. You need to have like laser focus. And you need to be committed and passionate about what you're doing. And you could do it at 18, 19, 20, 21. I've heard kids doing it at 14, right? But that was something that I was really inspired by. This dude can't
Yeah.
even buy a drink, but he could start a unicorn. That's fucking powerful.
Yeah. And me and KG were talking about this the other day. KG, I forgot the exact line that you said, but KG was like, I'm 23 and I used to think 23 is young, but then there are these guys that founded companies at 18 and I feel old. The crypto is probably the only industry, well, AI as well, I guess, but yeah.
KG, you're 23?
Yeah.
Unbelievable, dude. This industry's so young, man.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Will, I know we're coming up to time on the hour. There's just one question, and this is like this. We usually record the first clip of the video at the end.
Cool.
As you know, like when I used to work at Scribe, KG still works at Scribe. Every company or every project that used to come in, there was just one request. It was like, how can we do what Movement Labs is doing? Movement Labs is your client. We want to do that. I want them to get the information from the source. What is the one biggest advice that you would give to a project that is trying to build a cult-like community like Movement Labs?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to those people because they just validated my existence. So anybody that went to Scribe and say, I want to get like Movement, thank you. That means the world to me. I would give them the same advice that I would give anyone. If you want to build something that stands the test of time, how can you include everyone? How can you make it so undeniably great? How can you make people feel that it's theirs? And how can you make the community feel like owners? In a Web3 world, that's the only way to survive, in my opinion, right? Is that people need to feel a sense of ownership, a sense of inclusivity, a sense of acceptance, and a sense of responsibility to the project. And I think that you do that by being ruthlessly optimistic and transparent in how you're doing it, and bring them into the, as much as you can to the decision-making process on the directions that you take it. Listen to their feedback, but also make the ultimate decision that you think is best for them. And if it disagrees with what they thought you should do, communicate to them why you went that direction. I think like an authentic community first approach, which you can also go and study how we did it, because our roadmap that we did on our comms is all public, right? It's all on Twitter, so you can go study how we did it. But that would be my advice to them. If you want to have a movement like community, then run that shit back. Follow the playbook. Build for the community. Make incentive models and make a structure that allows for them to do what they love to do, just like you're doing what you love to do, and full send that thing. And hit me up if you need me. I'm here. Like I'm an open book. If people want to ask how we did it, I got 15 minutes on my calendar for folks. But I think, look, just go back to Twitter and just study the playbook and believe in yourself, and you'll get it done.
Love that. Full send that thing.
KG now has a video. KG now has a video to add to the scribe decks, and you can just play this now. KG, so
Dude,
that's one for Ishan right there.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and shout out to Scribe. I mean, look, I think that's another. I'm gonna give a shout out to Scribe. Like, work with people who, when you don't have it, will help you identify what it is. One of the things that was really helpful for me working with agencies was distilling our messaging. Like, I can't always distill it myself. You got to have somebody to bounce your ideas off of. So if it's a team or if it's an agency, identify somebody that you can just have a workshop with. I think that's really helpful. Like, because if I came into this and I didn't have this community building background, I would have been fucked. I did. I got really lucky. My, God in the universe blessed me with a career path that made me apt for this. But also it was the community whose shoulders I stand on. If I didn't have Scribe, who knows if it would have worked. You guys and Jonathan and the gang was really helpful in giving me a place where I could share freely my ideas.
Yeah.
And you guys saw me in some stressed environments and you held me down.
Yeah. I think with the current narrative of crypto Twitter with marketing agencies, I think it takes a very secure CMO to admit that an agency helped them. So
For sure.
I think that speaks volumes. Well, like I see a lot of CMOs, they bounce from agency to agency, and internally there would be discussions where it's like, okay, it was the agency's fault, it's not my fault. I think it takes a very secure person to be like, yeah, I had an agency, I'm the differentiator. It worked because of me, but they were always there to support me. So I think that's the perfect note to end this podcast on.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for doing this, Will. Super
Thank you guys for having
appreciate this.
me.
And
This is a
we're
blast.
waiting for the merch. The merch is pending.
I'm waiting for your address. All right. I'm waiting for your address. You put this on me, Ricky Bobby. I've been waiting patiently. I'm ready when you are, dude. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Make sure you're tuning into the podcast regularly. It's one of the best podcasts on the internet. So if you're not listening to it, you're missing out. Thank you guys so much. And these are two legends. Shout out to Scribe. Shout out to Wormhole.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate you.